just going to start this off by saying hell yeah. Love the label Severin Films. Love their podcast. Love a lot of what they do, what titles they restore, put out. Just a huge fan. I think they represent a lot of what's good in the boutique Blu-ray and 4K world. So excited today to get Andrew Furtado on, who is by uh, technically called the post-production supervisor for Severin. Andrew, thanks so much for joining.
Of course, yeah, but like I was saying, everyone wears multiple hats, so it's I had to pick a title to go on there, otherwise, because they wouldn't let me put etc. on a business card. Uh,
Well, that's an interesting place to start. So, uh, I think I'm always fascinated to, just kind of see the world that people assume is going on behind the scenes versus the reality. How big is the Severin office? Are we talking like 5 people, 6 people, plus a lot of
so
contractors?
we've grown since I started with the company like 6 years ago.
Mhm.
I started because they needed someone to come in and sync sound on a bunch of movies that they just had backlogged, and eventually they were like, "Oh, you can do more. Okay, let's do more. Okay, you can do more. Let's do more." And then they were like, "Hey, we
Yeah.
like you enough to where we want to, have you work for us more and possibly full time." And eventually that's kind of where it went. But the office, it is David, myself. I don't work from the office even. I work from home because I have a kid, and that was kind of my win is, I'd be able to be home and uh help with him whenever I need it.
Hmm.
And then we have, our office manager, an archivist, and that's like the mainstays. And then a friend of ours, Joe, who uses our office and is our designated scan expert. I'm going to call him that because he likes being called an expert. But yeah, he shares an office with us, and yeah, he won't let anyone touch the scanner but him, which is nice because he usually does a good job. He's a perfectionist. So yeah, it's a small office, but yeah, then we have a couple people contracted. The co-owner, Severin Films, Carl, lives in the UK, and we're spread out. But and our warehouse people is they're in Arizona, so we have a few over there. So it's not a big company, less than 20 people for sure. Like full-time employees. Everyone else is like contracted. Even the people in the office, I don't know if they're 100% full-time employees. I think they're contracted. But yeah, it's yeah. I feel like that's as much as I can say without blabbering on too much.
Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
IRS is
it's a
listening.
small community. Our office is slowly getting bigger because we used to have like this. So there's this I'm going to call it a mini mall of offices. That was um that that is our area in
Uh-huh.
Universal City, and we had one office. Then the guy moved out next door, and we're like, well, we could have that room be for film storage. We had this tiny office where everyone was kind of just huddled next to each other. Like they asked me if I wanted a desk there. I'm like, where would I fit? And then we got a little bit bigger. We cut a hole in the wall and made it go into the second room, and then that room became the Severin cellar, the first version of that. And then it was really nice. And then the guy next to us was like, I'm also moving on. David's like, we need more space because it just keeps getting bigger, and we keep
Yeah.
buying more film elements, and
Right.
we need space to store all that stuff because it takes time.
Yep.
And and now we have like a nice little, like, the whole mini mall of offices are like the little studio offices are now Severin headquarters. And it's great. We have now a dedicated Severin cellar, and it's also Curtis's, the archivist's office. David has his special office with all of his VHS collection in there, and our books. He calls it the drawing room. If you
Uh-huh.
listen to the podcast, that's where we record the podcast.
Yeah.
Then we have the film scanning room, which is always a mess because there's so many things coming in through there. And then the main office, which has a refrigerator in it. So
That's the
still,
mess hall.
yeah, still room to grow. But yeah, I mean, it's really grown a lot since I was first hired on. It's crazy.
That's amazing. And if across the different formats, Severin's obviously on home media. That's how a lot of people recognize you, but you also have a theatrical arm, right? And you also do a lot of restorations for other companies. Am I right in that?
Sort of. We don't do a lot of restorations for other companies. Since we own a scanner, we scan elements for people.
Or scan? Okay.
Um, and then like it's up to them if they want to hire the people we work with to do color and restoration and stuff like that. But I mean, like the whole Blu-ray industry is very, very much close. Like,
Yeah.
we always make the joke that Bill Lustig and the demon come into the office every once in a while and say hi. I've come there, and uh Bob Morowski from Grindhouse came and threatened to sue me because of a hat I was wearing that wasn't licensed by him for Evil Dead. And like it's a very tight-knit community where we all really want each other to succeed, and it's not just like a fight or anything like that. It really is fun. Like the whole thing with the demon and Vinegar Syndrome with Joe Rubin going on there because he wanted to go on a cage match. Like that's how their friendship started, and now they like hang out all the time. Like, it's just such a wild world. But yeah, like it's nice that people do that, and we all like to help each other. Like sometimes we like David is I think helping so many different people try to find elements because David's gotten really good at locating. We'll talk about that a little bit, but locating elements and doing that due diligence that goes that not everyone has the connections that he has because he's been in
Right.
the industry for like 20 plus years, and then even before that he was doing it all in the UK, so he's got a Rolodex like the sign. He still has a freaking Rolodex,
Yeah.
Jesus. But yeah, like we do a lot of scanning for other companies, and people like want to have their elements kind of taken care of because we're here in LA, so we're able to do a lot of things like companies that are out of the country or out of the
Yeah.
state and
Yeah.
can't really get to it, so we do help with that kind of stuff. um but yeah, other than that, what was the other part of your question? I apologize.
No, I was just kind of running through. You also have a podcast that you run. It's
Yeah.
just, I'm just thinking as I sit back and think about all the different areas that Severin's involved in, there are some companies that do similar amount of work to y'all that have maybe 40 employees, right? Or at
Yeah,
least
no,
more than. So it's crazy how
it,
busy y'all are.
it's a lot going on. Yeah, the podcast was something because I come from a podcasting background. Like I've been podcasting since I came to LA. I
Hmm.
started interning on a podcast and I started producing podcasts. I love doing that. So
Hmm.
when the opportunity came for something like this, which really requires context on a lot of these obscure ass titles, providing context to these kind of things really is like that was my favorite part of working at conventions, is talking to people and trying to get them to you know understand what it is, as opposed to picking up going that cover looks awesome or that cover looks weird. I can't imagine that's something I like. Well, like giving you the context of what it is and things like that really. I mean, I've had people come up, like we just did a screening at Tribeca of a doc we've worked on, and um someone came up to me afterwards and was like, "Hey, dude, I love the podcast, but also fuck you because I spent so much more money because I know what these things are."
That's the problem. That's
And
the problem.
I was like, "Thank you, but also I understand." Like that was the whole point of the podcast, is to provide that, because there's a lot of stuff with the amount of material that comes out that like falls onto all of our shelves, or that is available to buy, and you like blind buy something during the sale.
Right.
You could have used that money on something that you might have wanted, but you didn't know you wanted. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the people that listen to that, because I do that was my favorite thing. Is at a convention someone's like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "Bro, trust me, look at this." And that I it's that excitement. And then people have come up to us afterwards and went home one night, watched it, and then came back the next day to tell me it was awesome, and then buy more shit. Like it just, you create like a loyalty and a
Yeah.
trust with people, and that is something that I love that we do. And I see other people doing podcasts. I know we weren't the first. Like Arrow had a podcast for their
Hmm.
company, but I know Synapse has a podcast now, and I think
Hmm.
that level of transparency with labels is awesome. And I love that people are interested in supporting that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You get excited about a title unless it's Jess Franco, right? Or
You
is it?
know, yeah. No, but they're also, I will admit, there are some Jess Franco titles
Yeah.
that are good, and we are working on one right now that might be my, not just, I don't think it'll be this year. No, it will be this year. It is my candidate for release of the year.
Oh,
And I
nice.
never thought I'd say this. Jess Franco release of the year. Like it's yeah. So like there's a lot to look forward to, and yeah, Jess Franco still finding ways to surprise me many years after his death.
Posthumously. No, I mean, he's, I think this is my favorite thing. This is kind of one of the questions I had. Maybe this is a natural segue. I think a lot of the stuff you put out has a built-in audience, right? Like I think about the Nasty Habits box set, for example, right?
Mhm.
There are a subsection of people that immediately are like, hell yeah, finally, uh, Luigi Cozzi film or whatever, or the Bruno Mattei, whatever, these different directors, finally their nunsploitation work, right? I think Joe
Yeah.
D'Amato was one. So there's the group of people that know that, maybe have even seen it, or at least are aware of it, and they're going to jump at it, strictly on the back of, having wanted this for 20 years, or
Yeah.
like having a memory of, oh, I haven't seen this at VHS days or whatever, right? But the thing I love about y'all, and I call this the Bill Lustig effect, but you tell me if I'm wrong, because I was a big Anchor Bay and Blue Underground fan when I first started buying DVDs, whatever, 22 years ago, whatever it was. But it's that ability to translate the reasons why this is an interesting piece of film and package it up in a sentence or two that gets people kind of hooked, right?
Yeah.
That's a learned skill. I think that's not so easy to do all the time.
Yeah. I mean, David stole some tricks and tips from him, from Bill when they worked together. Like David worked for Blue Underground. Like that was his first US
Yeah,
job.
awesome.
Um and yeah, and we have Gary Hertz who writes our copy, and he's always been so great at pulling that kind of um sentiment out of some of this material.
Yeah,
finding ways to titillate and tantalize, but also not give everything away.
right.
Um, and yeah, I don't know the history of Gary, but I know that he's been the go-to guy for us forever. Like, but I was gonna say real quick, going back before I forget, because I am already forgetting because my ADHD is insane.
Welcome
Um,
to the club.
working on so many different projects all the time, it all kind of just disappears.
Yeah.
But the one thing about the podcast that I wanted to say that I love is David lets me be honest and say if a movie sucks, which is something I've said multiple times, which is why you saying that I hate Jess Franco. It's true, I do, and that having that honesty is just great and refreshing as an employee for somebody, a coworker, because there are some places where, like, I'm sure at some studios it's like you're afraid to open your mouth and say something wrong because you might get in trouble. But with David, it's become encouraged, and he's like, I don't like that you're negative. I'm like, bro, we're having a dialogue, and then you get to put, this is a debate. You can tell me your reason, and the audience can choose for themselves, and that's important. That gives both ends of the thing, that creates a more even keeled situation. Like, oh yeah, okay, so you hate him.
No, but honestly, just some feedback from fans' perspective. I trust um, the what's being said when negativity is introduced, right? It's like
Mm,
it's like you're giving the consumer the benefit of the doubt that they're not going to shut it out just because there's like a slightly negative thing said about it. But like you said, they're going to be smart enough to understand what like just kind of internalize that debate or whatever and say, yeah, you know what, I'm still going to give it a chance. I like, in
yeah,
a weird way, I think it almost helps the sale of things by being honest as opposed to just like pushing it all, right?
yeah, I 100% agree. um
um
but
yeah,
yeah, that I just wanted to say that before I forgot.
I love that. Yeah, and you're right, it's not always welcome to be so honest, but I like to hear that. Certainly on the podcast, and I'll just say this too, I've listened to probably the first 12. I have a weird tick where I like to go back to the beginning and listen, even though it's not relevant for like new releases and stuff. I think it's fascinating to watch podcast kind of journeys and see how they evolve and stuff. Um, I would not say that he's overly positive either. Like he's very honest about the struggles and very honest about challenges. And that's one thing that struck me is for somebody who has such a deep Rolodex and so many connections and has reasons to be more cautious with the way he speaks. He's kind of very open about how tough it is, or
Well,
um,
I mean, the people who are usually difficult are not the people who would be listening to a podcast. Uh, they're they're like archives that are difficult to work with because like I can't really get into too much. But for example, we have a license or something,
uh-huh.
and we're like, hey, here's our license. It goes back to the original owner of the film. Here's the whole chain of title and everything like that. Could we have the element that we found that's in your archive? And they're like, we don't recognize your chain of title. No. And because of that, the original camera negative for a film that has been, highly sought after and wanted by so many people just won't get a release because this archive has chosen to ignore a very legitimate thing, and it
Ugh,
leads to legal litigation, which is expensive, and we have to ask ourselves, is the juice worth the squeeze on that? Is that
yeah,
something that
yeah.
we can afford to do, where we're not putting ourselves in a situation? Is that something we want to do to piss them off, or another reason later, and then they don't want to work with us anymore? There are
Right.
people that are like that, and then there are private collectors who are like that. There are people who own the movie and it's like in their fucking garage, and they're like that. But
And
then
just
there are
deteriorating. Hmm.
there are tons of people who are fucking great and awesome to work with, and that it is every position, every profession is going to have the people who are great and the people who aren't.
Sure.
um but yeah, it's tough when the people who aren't also have the title that is great, and it becomes very confusing. Like, there are titles that we've worked on for many, many years, and even still, we don't know if we're going to be able to release them, because the licensing issues came up, or they had someone just fucking died, and the person who
Oh
got
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
elements or the film rights decided they don't like our company, or things like that, and that is when it does kind of kick us in the foot. But I've had people say they don't want to work with Severin uh for many reasons, and none of them have been because they heard us on the podcast, I'll say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's refreshing. I love it, and that's good to hear. I can just imagine a bitter archive or film like element owner just listening, hate listening, I
Oh,
guess.
oh, just
But no,
raging. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So one of the big things, and just to gush for a second, I stopped collecting. I should say, physical media. I paused around 2010,
Hmm.
just for life reasons, just
For sure.
money spent elsewhere. And I got back into it around 2018. Okay. And I feel like when I stopped initially, Severin was pretty relatively small. I mean, as far as a producer goes, right? In terms of maybe a couple titles a month.
Yeah, when I started,
Usually,
we were only doing two titles a month, three
okay,
maybe.
yeah.
So
And you
yeah.
you started around 2007, 8, is that right? Or was it
Yeah,
earlier than that
2007,
even? Seven,
2007.
right? Yeah.
Wait,
I,
what? 2017. What am I saying? 2007. Jesus. 2017.
oh no, you started 17, but Severin started
Oh, yeah. 2006. I
6.
think one
Okay,
of the
yeah.
first titles was Santa Sangre was one of the first ones. Count Dracula was one of the early ones.
Yeah.
And there were films that mostly were elements available kind of thing that we could find.
Right.
And we hadn't really honed in on how to work with people to get those elements, better elements out of places. So it was kind of what was available.
So, but yeah, I mean that's the startup journey, right? You had a cool
Yeah.
idea and you went and tested it out for a while and then kept improving. So 17 years in now, and I think the thing that jumped out to me though was because when I stopped in about 2010, I remember seeing some Severins in the stores. They used to have stores where you could go in and buy new products on Tuesdays. I remember seeing some Severin stuff, but certainly it wasn't like a major label in my eyes. And then I came back in 2018 and I was like, holy hell, like not only in variety of content, but also quality. And then I think it was 2019 or 2020 when y'all started going nuts with the box sets. Was it? Was it?
Um, Man, the first big one was Al Adamson,
Yeah.
which was the first big set that we'd worked on. That was something that I was working on for over a year. I was working on Catfish at the time,
Okay.
and I was working in production on Catfish during the day, and I go home and watch these weird Al Adamson movies at night. And when it was slow, I'd bring in my hard drives and work at the office secretly. And yeah, it was what 2000. I think that was like 2017. No, that was 2019. 2019.
Yeah, that's a, I feel.
Um,
Yeah, that's right.
and then that sold out. We did not think it was going to sell as many as we did. We had a very limited license with certain films, so yeah, we were like, all right, this is going to be great. If we sell some, we'll sell some. If not, whatever. And then it sold out. And we're like, well, shit, there's money in this. Okay, great.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And yeah, we were already planning on doing. At that time, we were already planning on doing a Black Manual box set, and we were working on that with a handful of titles that we knew the rights and how to get them. And then that caused us to go, shit, maybe we should just keep adding. Let's keep going. Let's see how much we can do. And that has been the onslaught. That has been the rest of the year. I think we're going to slow down a little bit on box sets next year. I myself, and I think the market itself as well, is getting a little bit of box set fatigue. Like personally, like smashing a year's worth of releases into one set is
Mhm.
it is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know Arrow has a handful of producers who work on stuff. Like James Flower is amazing and he's great, but he's only one of a few producers working on
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm.
And having that ability to spread yourself a little, a little thin, but not be like we've got me working on a lot of the elements. If it's not a finished master coming from a licensor or something like that, it's coming through my ass.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's my job to kind of go through it, check the quality of it, see what we can do, check the scan for any imperfections that we can improve on, because a lot of it, these movies were not shot with the best of elements. A lot of these films were shot with what they had, or what they could afford, so the quality of that kind of comes into mind. So you have to play with it and see. And then from me, I get into color and restoration, and I try to keep my eyes on every element of it. And we've really upped our QC game on a lot of things. I don't want to fucking hold on, let me find some wood. We have like a small team of people who are very dedicated. And I was running the QC head, like, of that part for a long time, until the amount of elements that came in, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So we brought in a friend, Todd, um, who used to work for Dark Sky, and he runs our um, QC department now, and I kind
Okay.
of supervise, and we have a great group of QC checkers who love this stuff. Like one of them, Blake Monahan, came from Facebook and was like, dude, if you guys ever need help, I'm like, you damn right I do, here you go. and that initiative of someone who was like, dude, I love what this stuff is and I want to work with you, and like that is the kind of person I want manning the screens, and because they're invested in this. um but yeah, that it's a lot. So anyways, yeah, we started in like 2017. First box set was like 2007 we started, and then the first big box set was 2019. And then from there we wanted to do a couple of director sets, because those are like really cool. And it
Mhm.
introduced me to people like Andy Milligan, who I'd
Yeah.
never even heard of, and I fucking hated the first time I watched a movie from him. And then there's one movie that made me just go, this guy's amazing. And then I rewatched, and I was like, I was watching it with the wrong eye. This stuff is awesome. And
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
just the level of weirdness. And then, Ray Dennis
Ray
Steckler,
Dennis.
who
Yeah.
that I think is the most honest of the director box sets so far, because you can, since he was alive enough to do commentaries for Shriek Show, their releases of a lot of his movies, you can hear in real time how he had this like early on in his career, like he's talking about his old movies, going, I wanted to be a big Hollywood star. I wanted to, win Oscars and do all that. So that's why I made Goof on the Loose and all this shit. And then by the end, he's talking about his later films when he moved to Vegas because he was hoping to get a pilot, and it never happened. So he just made movies there. You hear this disdain and anger towards Hollywood and feeling alone and kicked out. And you hear this whole transition as you're listening to these commentaries through his thing, or you hear Carolyn Baker talk about, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, not Carolyn Baker, Carolyn Brandt. I apologize. You hear Carolyn Brandt talk about just what it was like living with him and going through that struggle, and going through a divorce with somebody where you still worked so close together. Like, you learn so much about the filmmaker, and you find an appreciation for these films that someone might deem unwatchable. Like there's Incredibly Strange Creatures, who stopped living and became Mixed Up Zombies. Amazing movie. Then you have things like fucking Rat Fink and Boo Boo, which I will agree, unwatchable. But the first half of that movie is fucking great, and then he got bored and just changed it up. But yeah, you learn a lot about this cast of characters, and that's when I was like, director box sets, they're fucking great. They're so cool.
Yeah. Well, and
And
as a
then
collector too, it's just like it's hard to beat that, right? Because it's like, okay, fine, maybe it's $100, $120 you spend once or whatever it is, right? But then you're kind of done with that. You sort of, anytime you want to go watch a Steckler movie, like you've got his entire, or well, a massive part of his collection, right? Just like right there. I don't know. I love him.
including like lost films that we tracked down because we found some at an archive, mixed in with something else. And there's an excitement on our end for that kind of stuff too. But yeah, director box sets are great. I like box sets. They're great and they're bad, for a few reasons. Box sets are great because you have a curation of things that might not normally be of interest to you, but because they're all in a collection. For example, Arrow puts out those Arrow Noir, Essential Noir. No one thinks the fucking lady in the striped pajamas or whatever it is an essential noir film. But because it's in this box now, it has a little bit of gravitas behind it. I don't mean to keep bagging on Arrow. I'm not trying to bag on Arrow, but like the whole concept of a box set is you also understand that some of them are going to be duds.
No,
some of them might
totally.
not be for you, but you might stumble upon something that's great. And
Well, how
the thing
many?
that,
I mean, how many does Kino have now? How many they have? Like
God, the
15 noir
noir
sets or
sets,
something, right?
yeah. And I swear to God, I there's one where, hold on, what's his name? Some Like It Hot, not Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis.
Tony
Tony
Curtis.
Curtis plays like patty cake in prison. I'm like, I don't know if I should be watching this shit. What am I doing? And yeah, like there is a gravitas behind it, but you want to collect it, you want to know. And something that I love that we've really kind of focused on is curation. Like we don't just try to put things together because we don't know how to sell them. We have people like Kat Ellinger come in and kind of curate what this box set should represent, and Kayla Janice going in and like the folk horror box set and House of Psychotic Women and
Yeah, yeah.
Emmanuel, and going, this is how it should be represented. Like these are the titles that need to be in there because it's a great context and it's a great overall situation, as opposed to going, I got fucking these three titles. I mean, it could work. And it just
Yeah.
it feels a little more like a mini film festival as opposed to anything else. Like
Well,
I'm in LA. You have the Alamo Draft House where you're at, and
yeah.
there's places out here that literally just curate the New Beverly Cinema, for example, and Brain Dead Studios that just do double bills all the
hmm
time.
hmm
And it's they try to find movies that pair well together, like wine and cheese. And I like to think that we're doing a whole charcuterie board.
That's a great phrase. But this is what I tell people. So there's a debate, mostly online and Reddit and different boards where I spend most of my time about this idea of blind buying, right? And like the risk of blind buying, right? And like, or if some people even get offended at like, how could you spend money on something you have no idea if it's good or whatever, right? But this is exactly my point. This is what I always say, because I have right around 5,000 titles total, and I've been doing this over 20 years, kind of buying, right? And
Mhm.
I've probably seen 60% of them, or somewhere in that range. And the reason it doesn't stress me out is because when I first found out about Severin, there was sort of who you are now versus who I knew you as back 12 years ago or whatever. Um, what I do is I kind of buy like two or three titles that are either new releases or just maybe I'll scan through and kind of see something I want to like some Umberto Lenzi films you put out or whatever, right? And I'll kind of go through and I'll find some stuff I like and just test the waters a little bit. And then if those are good, then just buy a few more, kind of test out the label a little bit, maybe buy one or two that I haven't heard of just to kind of test it out. And at some point, it's just in my head, it's like, okay, I know this isn't just a revolving door of interns that are choosing these movies. Like this is now like a friend who's just sitting there that knows a lot about this and is like, hey, check this out, check this out, check this out,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And so
accurate.
I don't mind the blind buying. It doesn't feel like a big risk to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I really love about this company, especially is we don't tie ourselves down to one specific genre or one era. Like we put out a Peter Greenaway film and then the next week put out like, just a random nunsploitation, like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there's a variety to it. There's something weird like a Mike Lee film coming out of nowhere at the same
Hmm.
time as Frankie and his pals. Like, yeah, like there is a reason certain things get put into the collection that we've kind of curated. David especially has had such a specific voice in what he wants to represent and what he wants to put out. Like one of his goals is to put out all the video nasties, and that has
Right.
been an ongoing thing that he really loves doing. And he also wants to always make sure Jess Franco's represented, and like, so they're become sale staples. You're going to get a goddamn Franco title during a sale, usually two, and you're going to get the ongoing like In the Land of Franco series. You're going to get something weird. You're either going to get an Intervision or a Severin Films Severin Kids title.
Hmm.
You're going to get something crazy, you're going to get something cool. And it's not that everything is going to be for you, but it's you can at least expect a little bit of curation there and a little bit of less random buying. But
Yeah.
you'll also know, you're in good hands.
Yeah, exactly. Before there's one point you made earlier I want to get on before we move on too far from it.
Okay.
So you were talking about kind of hearing this journey of the creator or the director, how
Mhm.
he was like all bright-eyed and then sort of his journey through life when you're talking about Steckler. This
Yeah.
is one of the most fascinating. So Santa Sangre, the giant massive release you had of it recently, um, the Jodorowsky commentary on that, um, that guy is that is one of the most interesting, open, honest, raw. Like that guy is crazy. And that
That
commentary,
dude does tarot readings for people, and that's about it now. He's got nothing to lose. No.
I think he's probably excited that his movies are getting these amazing releases. But like I went through over the course of a couple of months, I saw all of his movies, and that journey between Frank Fondo and Liz, kind of ending in Santa Sangre, which is sort of his peak in terms of the films that people typically talk about, right? That
Mhm.
that is a wild journey to listen to him, and he talks about regret of losing his son. I think it's on the Santa Sangre one, right, where he's talking
It
about,
is, yeah.
yeah, like losing his son, and he's talking about like how hard this is. This is the first time he's watched it since it was made, and like all this stuff, and it's like, damn, like he's bearing it raw.
Yeah, it's gotta be rough, man. Like reliving a lot of those terrible traumas because, multiple people in his family who are in that film have passed away. And,
Yeah,
the film has always been um, very transparently kind of personal to him.
yeah, yeah.
And um, it has to be hard going back to that kind of stuff. I could understand why he wouldn't want to do it. And yeah, he's always been so open and honest with a lot of things, and finds a way to beautifully curate his story into
Uh-huh.
being a commentary. And I don't know, it's just, yeah, that's a relationship between him and David that has been so many years now, because I mean David released it in the States originally, and he made that doc Forget Everything You Know about
Hmm.
that was in the the Severin set. And yeah, like years and years of interviews. I'm sure he interviewed him many times beforehand. Like there's a relationship there and a comfort level, and knowing that if you're telling people this story to this from this person's perspective, you know your story will be told the way you intended it, as opposed to me cutting it cut up and changed or edited or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
taken
Right.
out of context.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's I love that. It's beautiful. I mean, and that passion comes through not only in something like Santa Sangre, but then you talk about all the Hans BRs. I mean, I think that's one everybody was calling the release of the year last year, right? It came out like late last year, right? Or mid
Yeah,
last year.
it came out late the year before, but went wide the beginning of the year. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. And so, I mean, you hear that entire box set is just full of passion and interest and context and history. And, that's another
That's
one where I
Kayla.
think, yeah, that's cool.
That's
It's,
Kayla.
it's, ama-
She does not like to leave. She made a 3 hour, 15-minute documentary about a subject. 3 hours and 50, that's more than Avatar, bro. And people loved it. It got awards all over the place. Like, so to be able to create that much stuff and keep it entertaining, like, and then still have more to say about it. Oh my God. It's crazy. No, she is a workhorse. Kayla is someone that, like Stephen Thrower, you give them a list and then they tell you what they want, and we work our way to make it happen for them.
That's
And
awesome.
we want she's working on other stuff with us right now, and like no one is dangerously thorough as she is.
I love
We
it.
have to like limit it, and even still it's tough.
Yeah, because you don't want to. So you mentioned that box sets are reducing a little bit. Are you, and I understand you probably can't give away too much, but are you going to be doing other director series, or are you going to be doing more sort of like collections in terms of like
Both.
nuns, both? Okay.
Yeah, we've already talked about that we're not done with director sets. I think those are great. Those are one of my favorite things to work on too. So if we did stop those, I'd be pretty bummed.
Okay.
The way we're doing it, we're not just doing directors. We're kind of, you know, branching out of that. I'll say that as a safe way to say it. It's not just directors. It might be an actor. It might be a production company. It might be something like
Got it.
that. But we're still staying true to that and creating that through line. It's just finding the right specialists and people who are aware of these people or such and such. And then there are curated box sets coming that they're still you know being done. It's just not this grand scale
Yeah.
where we I made a joke because off mic I was telling you how over the like 3 month period we'll have released almost 40 titles, including the Black Emmanuel films, the mid-year title sales, and the following month after that. Like, there's almost 40 titles that are new coming out, and it's insane to me that I long yearn for the time. Remember we just did 4 disc box sets. Those are cool. And I think, yeah, I stand by what I said. I felt like a fatigue to that kind of stuff, because it is a lot to do, because you not only are you working on one title or one set, you have to remember that there are many other months and different stages coming in, and you have to be constantly working on those. Otherwise those fall behind, and then you run into delays, or you run
Right.
into issues that a margin of error. Like, we worked very hard to try to keep up with demand and make sure that we're keeping up on time, not pushing titles back. And I think we recently, especially with the production delays and stuff like that, it gets harder and harder, and the margin for error is so slim. um and so we miss that kind of, not we miss it, we don't miss the buffer, but I mean, I definitely miss the buffer of being able to have a title ready by the time we announce. Like, that's my goal, is by the time we announce we should have at least check discs being sent out, and we should be close to being done. And it's tough when you're doing so many box sets and spreading yourself so thin on just one title alone.
Yeah.
because that's all one release.
Yeah. Speaking of that, there was a slight delay to the Emmanuel box set.
Yeah,
And I know
that's
that
kind
y'all
of what I was
announced
talking
it.
about. I didn't know if we announced it.
I think
Yeah,
no,
no,
I think
it's
it's on
okay. No,
Twitter, right?
I'm if you're talking about it, I'm sure we talked about it. But yeah, that is
Yeah.
that delay created a ripple effect, and it now, like, shipping those is going to be priority, and so our sale is, titles or the sale titles, are going to go out after or kind of during, like we'll have to split or bring in people to help keep everything moving. But I think the one thing I recommended and still stand by is transparency. Like, don't put these titles out without the knowledge that we're going to have it available at a later date. Like, it's not available right now. Like, make sure that is stated, because you set the expectation, because people like Vinegar Syndrome are fantastic at having all the titles ready. I cannot fucking figure out how they do that. That's insane.
It's
To
because they
have
don't
all
do
the titles
30
ready.
disc box sets.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
No, I mean, I don't know, maybe, but
And that might have something to do with it. But yeah, the amount of stuff that goes into these, it's very hard to keep that. And we've been working on it, and this is the first time in a while that we haven't had all the titles ready to go
mm,
when we announce. And it hurt my, not my ego, but like it hurt my morale, my self morale. And working through that and just continuing to push, it's just, you feel helpless, and you want to give everyone the product that they want, and that sometimes takes time. But yeah, like the delay thing. So I hope I think we did. By the time this gets out, it should be announced that the sale titles are more pre-orders for a later date, to help make sure that Emmanuel is still taken as priority to those people, because they bought it and they deserve to get it, when they
yeah, yeah, yeah.
when we told them. So because of that, like, our warehouse, like, and that kept creeping, because um the yeah, I probably shouldn't talk about this.
It's okay. No, no, it's okay.
Probably can't talk too much about it.
No, 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 no
um
reason to. I was just gonna say that's, this is like they always talk about software projects for like these tech startups, right? And
yeah,
software products are famous for being delayed from the launch date several times for a variety of reasons. Um, but I mean, this is the thing that I try to reinforce to anybody I come across when they're talking about Severin or Vinegar Syndrome or these companies that feel like such a well-oiled machine. It's true in a lot of cases, right? But also, it's like a startup. I mean, it's not, you don't have institutional investors coming in and just funneling money your way anytime you need extra capital for stuff, right?
no, you
So,
guys are that. You guys are what we use to fund ourselves.
uh,
The more money we make, the better the titles that we can get, kind of
yeah,
thing. But even still, we're so that's that situation. You guys who support us are the ones who are literally providing us the money to do this stuff.
yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of that, have you ever bantered around the idea of a subscription service?
It's been talked about, but because our stuff is so like, we don't have a set, like, you're going to get 4 titles a month and there are
Oh,
4 single
uh-huh.
titles and stuff like that. There's no way to really organize that at this time
Oh, okay.
anyways. Like, I couldn't tell you how that works at Vinegar Syndrome, like that subscription service. I think other companies are doing like streaming services, like I know Arrow does one, and I know
Hmm.
uh Massacre Video was working on one.
Yep.
I don't know if it's out yet,
I think it
but
just got announced. I know because
yeah,
Louis even talked about that when he was on with us a year and a half ago,
yeah.
as
Lewis
far as
Lewis has been
something's,
working on it for a long time.
yeah,
He's been at that for a long time, and it's not easy to start your own thing from scratch, as
sure.
opposed to just licensing titles to a different streaming service like Shutter or something like that. Like,
Right, right.
and that's a lot easier for a lot of people. But there are people who just want Severin stuff or Massacre stuff or Arrow stuff, and even still, Arrows puts out random stuff from other companies. Like, we're on there, you know,
Right,
um,
right, right, right.
sometimes, and yeah, it's so subscription service for us. I don't know if it would work, but
Yeah.
it'd be cool.
Well, it's nice to get all that cash at once, right? And then you go figure out what to do with it. Um,
Yeah.
but anyways, not trying to solve your business model here. I was just curious. So you mentioned that you were working this is a bit of a jump, but something that you said a second ago. You mentioned you were working on Catfish before that. So is your background do you have a film school background? Like, were you
I
working in
do,
the industry?
yeah.
Okay, okay.
I came out to LA for film school in 2009, and then I worked mostly on set until I found a real love for post production. Like I was always making stupid shit with myself and my friends
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
editing it, and I always loved editing. And then I found myself really leaning into that in school. And as soon as I graduated, I learned you didn't need a goddamn degree to start working in the industry. So, um, yeah, I highly recommend going to film school until you have an opportunity and then leave and take that job. But that's beyond the point. Um, the love I found for editing led me to working in development for TV shows
Okay,
and editing movies. Like I worked my first like physical media release job was 2011. I started working on the Nightbreed director's cut with Scream Factory.
cool.
I was the editor brought in to work with Clive to do that. And then after that, I was like, Blu-ray companies are pretty rad. And I've always been a Blu-ray buyer. I used to work at film like video stores and stuff, and
Hmm.
would people would sell stuff to the company and be like, I'd be like, it's worth a penny, and they go, well, you can just keep it. I'm like, I'll give you $1 for it, like myself. If I can keep
Hmm.
Jack Brooks Monster Slayer, oh man. But yeah, like so I found myself in a position where I was working on like a bunch of reality shows because I like reality. I used to work on Real Housewives of New York, and um, so I got sucked in. My first big reality show job was Caesar Milan,
Nice,
and
nice.
so yeah, if you ever need help with your dog, call me. First rule: have a tight shirt and show your chest a bunch. That's the best. That's the Caesar way, and yeah, so from there I really got into editing, and then I started editing bonus features for like people like Arrow. I worked on last house on the left, for example, and bonus features here and there, music videos, and short films, and then the opportunity came to work on Catfish. I was there for a long time. I had a great relationship with the producer, um and eventually Severin took me away.
Yeah,
Because Catfish, it's tough because it's a cool show, but it is the same thing every day. And if I wasn't working on Severin stuff while I was also doing that, I'd go nuts, man. I don't know. Reality's tough because it's the same thing every day, and that is what it is. But here it's the
right.
same thing every day, but everything is dramatically different. Like one
Yeah,
day I'll be working
yeah,
with an interpositive element for something, and then I'll be working on like an original camera negative restoration, or working on a 35 millimeter print and trying to make that look watchable because it's been sent through the grindhouse so many goddamn times. And
hmm,
like, so it is the same thing every day, but it feels different each time because each film has its own set of challenges. So it's that right thing for, like I was saying, my ADHD mind to feel like I'm getting that variety as opposed to feeling bored and doing something for a paycheck.
yeah,
It
yeah,
allows
yeah,
me to
yeah.
continue to be invested and interested and alert and trying to find new ways to do things and not reinvent the wheel, but make the wheel run a little fucking smoother. But
Yeah.
and every time you figure it out, guess what? You're fucked because there's a whole nother problem on another project.
I mean that it's funny because if you think about it in terms of buying, just strictly as a buyer perspective, right? It can be like, oh, this title got delayed, or like, oh, I guess not shipping or whatever. But if you think about it if you take a step back and you think about there's, 8 to 12 people that are
Yeah.
full time, or 8 to 20, whatever you said, full time dedicated to finding prints that otherwise would not be restored or published, and taking the time to do it. It sucks that there's kind of this contentious relationship with the people that are buying, because not that it's always contentious. I know there's huge fans as well, but like I remember even going back a few years, there was Severin was a little bit of a punching bag for the website
Yeah.
and stuff during the sales, right? And I always
Yeah.
felt bad because it's um like they're putting out like Hemisphere of Horrors, or the Lindsay Baker set, or like I'm just looking through the ones I have out. I pulled them out so we could talk Blood for Dracula, the Eurocrypt stuff. Like these are amazing releases. Like, let's just chill. Like,
Yeah,
no one's trying to.
I can't hold anyone accountable for that kind of stuff. Like it's going to happen regardless. And usually the most negative voices are the ones that are most loud. And
Sure, that's
that
true.
happens. I'm fine with that. Like, for example, when our YouTube got shut down, um, I was told to make a big stink out of it by people who have also had their YouTubes shut down. Um, and I was on Twitter just going nuts on these people and the negative stuff that I was saying, like, hey, you guys, like I had a negative attitude towards it. Those tweets were getting likes like crazy. And then, the videos where I'm like, dude, Mondo Macabra put out this amazing fucking title and people need to watch it. Got like 5 likes. And I'm like, see, you guys, people, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, negativity seems to get
Uh,
the most attention.
uh,
And
uh-huh.
I don't know, personally, I'm an optimistic person. I try to focus on the positive side of things, unless you're Jess Franco. But I've always been that way where I think optimism is important and it's
Yeah,
something that not everyone focuses on. And like, I look at the negative comments. I read the forums. I'm active trying to see what people are mad about. So see how we can improve that. That's why transparency for me is such an important thing,
yeah.
because so many times confusion turns into rage, or not rage.
Mm,
Rage sounds dramatic. Confusion turns into anger and negativity because
mm,
I mean, I'm the same way. I'm fucking, my dad's the mindset of I'm mad, so I'm gonna go fucking swear in the middle, fucking straight, stuff like that. Like, if I don't know how to do something, I get frustrated, and
yeah,
frustration
right.
turns into rage, and then I'm like, why am I hitting my fucking car because I don't know how to fucking change the oil? Like, that's not its fault. But like, that's why transparency, and that's why the podcast and YouTube and all this stuff is so important, because it brings you guys closer to what we do, and feel comfortable. Like, people tweet at me and ask me questions, and if I can answer them, I will. And like, that level of trust and honesty creates not benefit of the doubt, but like it creates an open dialogue to where you go, oh, I'm confused, let me ask somebody who can answer. And sometimes we
Mhm,
just, for certain things we can't answer for legal reasons. I think you already know what I'm talking about. But we
mhm.
can't talk about that because it's an ongoing legal situation.
Right.
and and if we talk about it, it could mess things up, and it could snowball into being a bigger issue and stuff like that. So um yeah, there's a lot of that stuff, and that's why I love working with this team, because I have no problem telling them like what my issues are and what I think we can improve on. And with the website, for example, crashing all the time, that was not something that we took lightly. We genuinely tried many different things, and everyone's like, just go to Shopify. We couldn't for a long time, because they have such strict rules on a lot of racier content, racier titles and stuff like
Oh,
that. That was why we were not on there. We were using a different company, and it took a lot of research and understanding, that what, like, figuring out, like, we fixed it, and then we found out, oh shit, it wasn't that was broken, it was something else. And like, we don't know this space, so we trust the people we hire to do it. And sometimes
yeah,
it's
yeah,
trial
yeah,
and error, and it's tough because the biggest trial comes at the biggest time.
yeah.
And
Most notable public time. Right, right, right.
man, it really, it sucks, but it is what it is. And now we found a way to finally get back on Shopify, and we're there, and it's been fantastic the last few sales. And you
Yeah.
find, and you see that discourse, and people being more optimistic and understanding and happy on the forums, which is a rarity.
Uh,
you know um
Well,
the
yeah,
it's people still do come after us, but I mean, I don't take it personally. A lot of people say what they want, and that's totally fine, dude. Like, you're entitled to your opinion, and a lot of people just want to make jokes, and it's hard to understand it's a joke through the lens of just reading text. you know
without context. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Well,
it is what it is.
but speaking of, some of the, thank you again. Just speaking of transparency, I mean, I love that. You got me thinking about a question I wanted to ask, and again, only to the extent that you can talk about this. I imagine it's going to be a very high level answer. But one of the trends I've noticed as you put out titles that are in high demand, right, and you're getting these big sales. Well, I don't know. I'm assuming big sales numbers on a lot of the titles that are a bit more well known. And we see it in other labels as well right now. It feels like the studios are kind of softening up on this idea that companies like Severin can put out their movies, increasingly more well-known titles. Just at a very high level, do you see that as well? Like, are you seeing any directional shift towards releasing more well-known stuff, or
Well,
is it?
that kind of goes in line with the more money, better titles situation I was talking about earlier, where the
Mhm.
more money you get, because those big titles, those behemoths, those gods of the Blu-ray world
Uh-huh.
are fucking expensive.
Yeah.
Like
We heard
David wanted to
somebody.
put out. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No,
I
no,
was gonna
tell
say
me.
David wanted to put out Faceless so long ago, but they
Uh-huh.
wanted so much goddamn money to do it. And eventually we had enough hope in the industry to where David made that plunge, because guess what, the price didn't change. It only got more expensive. And so it's kind of one of those things where, like, I don't understand how that works. They're like, oh, it was this much, now it's this much though. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what
yeah.
changed? Well, you wanted it again, so clearly it's of demand. And like, that title was expensive. And you know um it got out, and it was a great title, and people were really happy about it. So there's that. But what were you going to say? I apologize.
No, it's really good insight. We were talking to somebody who said that Peter Jackson, there, because bad taste, and a lot of these don't have
Mm-hmm.
releases yet. Although I know he's working on the restorations right now. But they were saying that a couple of years back he was asking 100, or his, I shouldn't say Peter specifically, but like whoever owned the rights was asking for 150,000 a title. They were like,
Yeah. I
okay,
mean,
okay, okay.
how much do you think Dawn of the Dead cost to put it out just in the UK?
I
Like,
can't. Yeah, I can't even imagine. Right,
I
these titles that are so well known.
that title, like, it Second Sight have been doing amazing work with some of the harder to release titles. And I highly recommend people go region free. I think that works, because a title in the UK, because the market for region B is smaller than the market for region A, which is the entire you know America and South
Uh-huh.
America and Canada.
Uh-huh.
Like that that demographic is huge.
Right,
And
right.
so the amount of money for just the UK rights is better than what the rights are for the US. And like, you're seeing 88 putting out some of the best fucking Hong Kong output anyone else is doing. Eureka is putting out incredible Hong Kong stuff.
Yeah.
And just they're putting out a Second Sight doing these great releases for these films. And yeah, the 4K is region free, but the bonus disc is like Blu-ray, is region B. And like, it's hard to get some of these titles over in the US, or someone's just afraid to make the plunge. And uh it's tough. I'm looking at like a lot of my region B stuff right now, like fucking Bloodsport got a 4K in Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know when the hell that's ever going to happen in the US. It's one of my favorite movies. I hope it does, because I love it. And I'll buy it then too. I don't give a shit. But
When the JCVD box set comes out.
oh, I can't wait.
Um,
But like obscure titles like Host getting a Second Sight release was so cool. It just came out here as Shutter Original, and there was like a bare bones
right.
Blu-ray that came out. And the extra work that Second Sight puts into their stuff. And Indicator has been a great release company. And then you have like Australia, which is even an even smaller situation, where it's just they're getting everything Paramount. It's insane. They're at imprint. I think I said it wrong, but imprint. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
getting all these amazing titles that are region C. But the thing about region C is it's kind of region free, so it's like a weird loophole that
No, I
no
was
one
just
else
about to
can.
say that. It's amazing,
It's
right? They just
yeah.
they just forget to encode it.
It's no, it's because okay, so Blu-ray players there is like a region C thing, but most players don't have a region C. situation. So region C is 99% of the time
It's
region
gonna be
free.
oh shit.
Yeah.
Y'all,
Australia, man.
you should just open up a Severin's Australia. Do whatever you
Hey,
want.
shut up. Don't put that out in the ether. Can't do that. That's no. But yeah, no, it's like there's so many great titles from all over the world. And so yeah, region free is the way to be. But yeah,
Yeah,
like these bigger titles are so costly and it's a risk. And the more money we make and the more trust we have with people who are willing to take the plunge, gives us a sense of security to where we can make those investments. Like we have some titles coming
yeah,
out that are big titles, not just in my opinion, but like in physical media's
yeah,
opinion. Like
yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
a and those were not cheap. And it's something that like, okay, cool, we know we can at least get this many so we can hopefully make our money back. But like, I'll be honest, I don't know if we're going to make our money back on the Emmanuel set because that thing spent so many years, so many licenses had to get renewed because things keep getting delayed and all this stuff. So like, keep buying it because I'd love to make $1 off of it one day.
Well, I definitely have mine pre-ordered, so yeah, it's amazing. Wow, what an amazing intro to the label. Uh, I'm trying to think. So we covered a lot of what I had to kind of want to talk to you about. There obviously could easily go another hour. I think you're an amazing advocate for what Severin does. Are y'all
Thank
going
you.
to start doing closet videos again?
Yeah, there's one being edited right now
Awesome,
with Art Edinger.
awesome.
And yeah, I still have a list of people, but it's just been hard because I'm shooting it and usually editing them myself, and it's just with the amount of workload that we've had going on, it's been very hard to deviate from our
No, no,
normal
no.
thing, like to the point where even Emmanuel's podcast was done the day of the announcement. Like there was
Okay,
just
okay.
it was just so hard. And then in the episode you can hear it when the trailer dropped and our YouTube got shut down. Like
Oh,
you
it
can hear,
happened. It all
I'm like,
happened live.
oh, it's live. Oh no, we're fine.
Oh wow, I have to go listen to that.
But
That's
yeah,
wild.
like we're working on doing more stuff. It's not stopping. It's a mixture of like who's available, who's interested, who would be great to have as a comeback kind of thing. And
Hmm.
yeah, I like that it's not set because it makes them feel more special when they drop. Like that was like I love the Criterion Closet so much. I think they're fun. But I don't get excited about every single one. Like I got stoked when Michael Shannon was in there, and then I saw he ended it by saying, "Thank you. I'm such a special boy. I'm such a such a special boy. I can't wait to go home." But like the people, it's important that the people who are in the cellar um are fans,
I
and
said closet. I'm sorry, cellar. Yeah, that's
it's
right.
okay. I
I'm
knew
sorry.
what you meant. It's all good. It's all the same.
Well, look, Andrew, that is it. So this is going to drop. I feel like we have to at least mention this here at the end. So this is dropping on sale day, right? So we're live now,
Mhm.
although we're recording it a few days before. Um, is there anything you want people to hear if they listen to this, just as they prep for the sale? Anything, any kind of parting words as they brace themselves to spend a lot of money with y'all?
Oh man, just thanks for the support. um,
Yeah.
the one that I think is going to be kind of underlooked, that I don't think deserves to be as such, is Delitti Privati Private Crimes, the Italian miniseries. That series is crazy good. It's very similar to like it's just a murder mystery that's 4 feature film lengths long
Hmm.
story.
Hmm.
And the whole thing that makes it exciting for a lot of people is Edwidge came out of retirement to do an interview for us. And she's notoriously not doing interviews about her work, especially stuff that we put out. But she is extremely proud of the work that she did on Private Crimes.
Oh, cool.
And so when she's like, I don't want to do, well, yeah, I'd actually do that. That'd be nice. That'd be
That's cool.
great. And, I think something that is worth checking out, because the previous releases of this were like rough shape. The audio that they sent took a lot of work to get it restored and sounding great. And I don't know. I think the presentations is fantastic for those of you who are, fans of that kind of stuff. But fucking our Nightmare 4K is okay. That's one of the ones that I was trying to talk about, where it's like a labor of love went into it. Same with last horror film, and fucking Bad Bio. Fuck it, all this shit. The amount of work that goes into this, even Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, I can go into this a little bit, but basically all of these elements, all of those titles that I just mentioned, have multiple different sources, multiple different film sources creating a full uncut version of the film for the first time ever.
Okay.
Nightmare is the exception there, because there are 2 bits that just don't exist because the elements are completely destroyed. But the 2 bits that are missing, we found sourced from like an Australian and a Dutch VHS. So you have it in the bonus features for that, but it is, as far as it's going to be known, like the longest version of that film that's ever been available. There's that, like, and that was sourced from an answer print of the film, which was the edited version mixed with 2 of the rare and existing like 35 millimeter release prints of the film. And Nightmare is one of those ones where HDR actually really benefited the film. I wasn't sure how it was going to work with a print, but the amount of fade on there, like going into HDR and actually coloring and changing things around, really did make a difference. And it looks great considering everything that went into it. Bad Bio, Michael Felsher of Red Shirt Pictures, went through the tireless effort of going through. We scanned all of the dailies, because that film was edited, shot on film, edited, digitized, and then edited. So it was never edited to be a final film element. You know what I mean? It was edited in HD.
Yeah.
And so we went back, because Frank Henenlotter is good friends with David, and so is Gabe Bartalos. They brought in all the film for that film. We digitized it at our office in 4K and sent over all of it to Michael Felsher, who recreate the film for the first time in anything that isn't digital. And it looks unreal. Like, Frank was so excited about everything. And he approved the color, he supervised it, and he's been just a great dude to work with. Fabulous Journey to the Center of the Earth, the original camera negative was in Spain, but it is a US title. So we were looking around for US releases, because there were alternate versions of scenes with English. For example, there's a scene where they look at the mirror and they see text, and the title of the film is different in Spain. So we found an English language print, and I pulled those inserts and put those in and recreated that film for US audiences. There's a lot of love and work went into this hot garbage. No, I'm just kidding. It's not hot garbage, but no, the amount of work that went into this is to give you guys that kind of best version, but The Psychic is a big one for me. The movie is not one of my favorite Fulcis, but it is another one that really benefited from HDR and created such a beautiful look. So I'm excited for people to see that in a modern day Fulci renaissance that's happened. What else is there that is? But yeah, and then there's 2 Francos. But I mean, I think that's all.
What is it?
Right? 1, 2, 3, 4,
1 cup,
5,
2
6,
Francos.
7. 1 cup, 2 Francos. Yeah, it's. Oh man, and one of them, the sexual story of O slipcover still makes me laugh, because Lena Rome isn't even in that movie. Like, what's going on there, man? What we get it. You're married. But I think this slate of titles is just, it is wild to me that it took so much work to get some of this stuff done, but the final result is always going to be worth it.
Yeah,
Almost every time.
I love it. Well, it's obvious from the way you speak so fluently about all the different labels and releases that you're a collector at heart, which you started off by saying you were anyways. So I'm very happy that Severin has you running their post-production
Thanks,
amongst
man.
the 9 other things. And please, once the fatigue wears off, please keep putting out box sets because I
Oh, we're
love
not
them.
going to stop. We're not going to stop. But just let me put out a few. Oh man, it's got to the point where we announce a box set that's like taking years off of our lives, and someone's like, "Great, what do you got next month, motherfucker? Let us live in this moment." That happened, and I even didn't snap, but I on Facebook I was like, "Hey man, give us a minute." Jesus Christ. Yeah. No,
As every time you birth a 15-pound baby and someone's
oh
like,
my
cool, when are you going to do it again?
God. Yeah.
Um,
What's your next film, bitch? Let this release first. Like, but
okay,
yeah, I would say, don't worry, box sets are still going on there, especially, some big ones coming, and some more fan favorites I think are gonna shock people. So I hope
awesome.
this creates a little bit of joy in somebody's heart.
Awesome. Well, I know it will. Thank you so much for the time. I hope as time goes on, I'd love to have you back on under different contexts when it's appropriate, if you're open to it, so we can talk about that. But this is your natural speaker, which, by the way, if anyone's not listening to the podcast, definitely recommend it. It's very entertaining, and like we talked about, gives amazing insight into the company. And yeah, I just really appreciate you making time for this.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me on.
All right.